Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, men and female. God created them and are watching us. And everybody else does not really count. Uh, Welcome to Beard Blather number 200. Oh my God, 200, a bicentennial of blathers, and I managed to survive without provoking Thomas into drowning me in a pond or something, which I'm sure some of you watching in Twitter would love to see, but hey, tough buddy. Uh, tonight we're going to be talking about this awesome, awesome, beautiful, awesome failure. This is worse than the failure cascade that we discussed so long ago. This is failure everywhere from communist asshats, Hamassholes, and other vermin that castigate this world with their insane and healthy presence. This is Saul Montez Bradley, live from Florida. My golden cage, for those of you who know this, the largest human repository of useless information, and to my side over there is Thomas Victor, the only living expert in World War I flamethrowers and so many more interesting things, most of which I'll try to elucidate tonight as I prod him in what regards these failures. We are doing this in our channel in Odyssey. The link, for those of you who have never seen this, is right there in the description in YouTube and in the very text of the post in Twitter. We are not going to monitor chats in YouTube or comments in Twitter, though we may answer them at a future time. We are monitoring the chat on Odyssey, so if you want to participate in the chat and talk to us and maybe get a response, come to Odyssey and use the chat. For those using the chat, thank you very much, GRT and LL, who have already started super chats. These are the ways that you have of supporting this channel so that we can continue to do this. Either support in Odyssey or the $sign in the chat, which is kind of like a super chat, and you can contribute to this program, or you can go to quadverum.com/support us and contribute both for these to these channels and for the upkeep of social Quadverum, where we continue the conversation all week long. And having done the plugs, as usual, let me welcome, without further ado, Thomas Victor from Californication, the place where a little twerp with bad hair insists in fucking everybody, but he gives free health care to illegal aliens.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
He said that any illegal who makes it to California will automatically get free health care. And my prediction a while ago was that California would end up with only illegals and low-income people on one end and the rich on the other. But now I think the rich are going to leave. Newsom is looking at ways to tax possessions you already have that you've paid taxes. You've paid taxes on the money that you use to buy these possessions. You've paid taxes on the possessions when you bought them. You've paid a sales
on the purchase.
And now Newsom wants to tax you for simply having them. And, there reaches a point where even the most rabid leftist wealthy person says, you know what, this is not working. And I think that's what California is going to end up, a state of illegals and very low income people.
And the homeless, they're not going anyplace.
Well, they're all going to come to California as they get driven out of other cities.
And unless Comrade Xi comes visiting again, in which case they're going to run the homeless into Arizona for a weekend.
Well, it's just, I mean, okay, Trump just predicted that neither Biden nor Kamala will be on the ticket. And both of you and I have heard that this is likely going to be the case, that they're going to have a contested convention. And Trump said
a broker convention in the end.
Right. And I have no doubt that Biden will attempt to run because he's so arrogant. But if he can't get the votes in the convention, then who are they going to choose? I think it's probably going to be Newsom, unless his horrendous performance in the debate with DeSantis, where DeSantis held up the shit map for San Francisco, and Newsom could only laugh, which what I heard was that his wife was signaling off on the side, you know, end this right now. And so it was ended because he was making such a fool of himself. And if Newsom does run, then Trump's going to win, I don't know, 45 states easily. I mean, it's going to be amazing, because the commercials just make themselves. It'll be like, here's Governor Newsom who wants to do for the country what he's done for California, and just show the videos. Newsom can't clean up all of California between now. He could clean up a city or parts of a city for Xi, but he can't clean up all of California in time for the Democratic convention, and or rather the general.
The general election.
Yeah.
No, California, it's going to be way more than a shithole than it already is. But let me tell you, because you and I have discussed previously the possibility that the potato in chief may never make it to another election. And when I see things like this, there we go, I am convinced that there is absolutely no fucking way this thing can do anything. Look at that face.
Well, he has no idea where he is.
Now, do you see a presidential candidate there?
No, of course not. Of course not.
What I see is an abused old man.
Well, okay. I hadn't told you before he went on the air that I was going to bring this up, but conservative social media is going wild because Tucker Carlson just stuck it to you and I, basically. He didn't name us, but no. Tucker Carlson said on
I think I have a video for you
of him saying,
believe it or not, I can read your mind, man.
Show me what you have.
Hold on. Let me see if this is the one. Yeah, this is the one. Hold on just 1 second. I need to get it for you on camera. I'm getting better at this, but still not quite there.
Well, I hope it's what I was going to talk about.
I think it is. I think it is, based on your introduction, because I noticed that too, you know. And by the way, it's okay. I dislike him anyway.
Well,
Hey.
I love dead air. There we go.
There we are.
Okay, this is it.
I love that air too, but every now and then, shit, it happens. That's what you get with a live broadcast, and you springing shit on me.
Don't really care, but I did think it showed like the level of not just corruption, which I knew, but of like emotional instability and craziness. I mean, there are people, and I stopped reading any of it, but there are people on the right who have spent the last 2 months every single day focused on a conflict in a foreign country as our own country becomes dangerously unstable on the brink of financial collapse with tens of millions of people who shouldn't be here in the country. We don't know their identities or the purpose of their being here. Like stuff that's
tens of
could destroy
billions
the country for real and make it impossible for my kids to live here. They've said nothing about that, and they're focused with laser intensity on foreign conflicts. And I'm like,
That's
at
a
some
lot.
point, I've got 4 kids. If I'm so caught up in the problems of my neighbor's children and completely ignoring my own children as they get addicted to drugs and kill themselves, I'm not against helping my neighbor's kids, but clearly I don't love my kids. I mean, that.
Okay.
Enough. Now, here's the point I was going to make. Okay, he lied when he said nobody's saying anything about it.
Yep.
Not know that that's a lie. He's also created a pathetically retarded straw man.
Yep.
Because all the problems that he's talking about cannot be solved by the Republicans without the help of the Democrats. And the Democrats are not going to help the Republicans leading into an election. So we don't have the votes to close the border. And all the problems he's talking about, crime and, poverty and all that, this was all voted for by the American voter. They voted for Joe Biden. And although there was cheating, you can only cheat when the election
So much.
and the election was very close, which it shouldn't have been, because Americans were so fucking stupid that they decided they didn't like mean tweets, and so they elected a decent man without knowing anything about him. You and I knew about him. So
Boy, did we say it.
Tucker is lying. He didn't stick it to anybody. All he did was prove that he's an incredibly dishonest man. And the second
Yes.
thing he said that people like him are just getting attacked. Did you hear what he said? He said that we're mentally ill, we're psychotic.
Yes.
So,
And by the way, that's okay, because Ben Shapiro is not a real American,
well, of course, because he's Jewish. This is what
Right.
it's about.
Right. He resuscitated the trope of the dubious loyalty. The son of a bitch now sounds like Rashida Tlaib.
Well, this is the thing, and here he is saying that we should not react to this imbecilic blowhard who knows nothing about anything, using straw men and then whining, complaining like a baby when people say, Tucker, like you're full of shit. Your arguments are for retarded people.
Yep.
Oh my God, I'm being attacked. And it's like, you just called me psychotic. You just said I'm insane. Okay. All the problems that are facing our country now are voted for. We can't solve them by ourselves. So what we can do in the case of Ukraine and Israel is we can help them win the war by giving them enough weaponry.
And we can inform. I mean, the fallacy that you can only talk about American issues in order to protect American interests is so asinine as to be unacceptable for anybody older than 4.
Yeah.
There are American national security interests at play in the Red Sea, in the Middle East, in Ukraine. Russia invading Ukraine and threatening Poland, Romania, and the Bosphorus is bad news. And it's going to mean troops on the ground at some point if we allow it to get there. The Houthis effectively closing Bab el-Mandeb, it's going to create havoc in supply lines and distort prices for months to come. We're going to be paying through the nose for the imbecility of the Blinken State Department, who took the Houthis out of the terror list in February of 21, thus allowing shipments of weapons into Yemen without problem or control, and movement of money in and out of Houthi accounts in Sana'a without any problem for the past 2 years, creating the very shit show that we're now dealing with American ships wasting American taxpayer dollars, taking down missiles shot by the Houthis at merchant ships in the Red Sea and Bab el-Mandeb.
And that was all voted for. Blinken was appointed.
Yes.
So,
No. And this is what the American people essentially chose 3 years ago.
So the idea that I'm supposed to step in and save leftist voters from themselves, okay, A, it can't be done, and B, it can't be done right now because we don't have the votes, unless Tucker's talking about
but all those rhinos, Thomas, all those rhinos who don't want to do things, they should be doing something. How come Biden is not in jail yet?
See, again, that's for retarded people. And the country is split down the middle. The Congress is split down the middle. The Senate is split down the middle. We can't do anything. And Tucker Carlson he knows full well. He's just demagoguing because...
Like he did his entire life, since he was a rabid Democrat in CNN.
Yeah. No, so he gets people to kiss his butt, and, his double chin can get huger. And, it's he could go on and on about what it all comes down to is Tucker hates Jews. He's an East Coast elitist.
Yes.
He hates Jews. They all hate Jews. He hates Ben Shapiro because Shapiro is Jewish. And the whole notion that Shapiro isn't a real American because he's a Jewish. I mean, Israel is the Jewish homeland, for God's sake. All right. That's what it's called. And there's no analogous state in the world to Israel. So to claim that Jewish people, Jewish Americans should completely not give a shit about what happens to Israel, to demand that of Jewish people, it's not only unreasonable, it's insane, which is what he's calling me for supporting Ukraine.
Yep.
And
which indirectly he is supporting Putin, because this is a binary choice. There is no third way.
No.
Either you support Ukraine's sovereignty, or you are okay with Putin invading a country and taking a hold of it just because it grows out of his nuts.
He's not only invading Ukraine, his recent missile and drone attack on Ukraine
landed in Poland.
They went through Polish airspace. He completely violated Polish airspace. That was deliberate. They were testing.
And you and I have been saying, do these idiots want Russian tanks on the Polish border?
Apparently. I mean,
that is World War III, really.
To say this for the hundredth time, for the first time, Europe and the United States are heading off a world war. And
yes.
Carlson would have been one of those people who insisted that we not get involved in the First World War and we not get involved in the Second World War. And guess what? We were dragged in, and we were unprepared, and we sent men to fight with the wrong weapons and with shitty,
and we suffered enormous casualties because of
enormous casualties. When we were sending men to fight Japanese Zeros in Brewster Buffaloes, it was a 1930s, a mid 1930s technology that I mean, the Japanese, it was the great turkey shoot for them. And because Tucker wouldn't have wanted us to build up our military to be ready for anything. Putin is
because we have to concentrate on our problems within our borders. He's a fucking idiot.
Well, and he's also a liar by saying that nobody on the nobody who supports Ukraine and Israel is saying anything about our problems here. You and I talk about it every fucking week.
Yes, we do.
But again, we also point out that people voted for this. Okay. Which takes away all my outrage, because you do stupid things and you win stupid prizes, and this is the greatest of stupid prizes that Americans have ever won. The American voter has ever won, and Tucker can complain in all his magnificent tubbiness, his complacent content, porcineness. He can complain all he wants, and he can insult everyone, but he has to be prepared to be called names himself if he's going to be hurling insults at his better.
I'm sorry, but anybody who uses the divided loyalty trope against Jews is a fucking anti-Semite. Is using Nazi propaganda. This is the kind of shit I would tolerate in Der Stürmer. But in an asshole who pretends to be a libertarian, he's not.
No, of course not.
In America, no.
Yeah.
No, if he wants to sound like Rashida Tlaib, then he has earned vituperations from me, just like she has.
Well, he has divided loyalties in that he's a Putin sycophant. And okay, the Russians launched the largest missile attack on Ukrainian civilians of the war on the exact same date that the Nazis first bombed Coventry. Okay, now Putin, we all know dates mean a lot to him, and Putin is a big fan of Hitler because Putin wants to be Hitler. Putin wants to exterminate people. Putin wants to expand. If you watch Russian TV now, they're talking about they're gonna march to Berlin.
Yep.
And they're going to come and they're going to take
Medvedev came out and said it, and Lavrov as well. I mean, this is not something that a talking head like Tucker does. This is something that high government officials have been repeating on TV.
And they're going to come and they're going to take back Alaska and California. And of course, the Russians can't do any of these things, but they can rev up their entire population to want them to do these things.
Yep.
And they're going to. Biden is so weak. By
the way, you just gave me an idea. Maybe we should give him California.
We lost an American to the Iranian-backed terrorists in Iraq, and we did some little pity-potty, retaliation that didn't do anything, and they came out and said it was proportional. No, it wasn't. You didn't kill anyone.
We already have, between those killed on, because have you noticed how Tucker Carlson is not saying anything about the 37 Americans killed by Hamassholes
Of course not.
on October 7th?
No, he said he feels really bad about what happened on October 7th.
He feels really bad. We're talking about people killing American citizens, for crying out fucking loud.
They didn't know what you said.
he's not saying anything about the fact that 37 Americans died on October 7th, that about 10 to 15 Americans were taken hostage, and some of them still are, and probably they're already dead as well.
Yeah,
That we had 50 wounded and 1 dead in the several attacks in Syria, and we're already pushing 100 casualties of American citizens.
of course.
When is it? Where is the tipping point? Do we need 101? Maybe it is 200.
Tucker would say that we're asking for it by being there, and if we just pulled all our forces away, then we'd have world peace. Or we shouldn't do anything until all the terrorists are on our doorstep, and then we can defend ourselves.
Right.
And it's like, well, you can live that way because you're rich enough to afford personal security and all of that. But the rest of us, when the Houthis cut off the what the fuck is it? I just forgot. What have they cut off? The Suez Canal? They've cut off.
Oh, Bab el Mandeb.
Yes.
The Straits of Bab el Mandeb. For those who are watching, between Djibouti and Yemen, there is a very narrow straits that is the access from the Indian Ocean to the Red Sea onto the Suez Canal and the Mediterranean. 70% of Europe's trade with the world goes through that point. And of course, why the fuck do we care about Europe? Because that affects our trade with Europe as well.
No, all this means higher prices for you and I, and you and me, actually.
Yes.
And I'm tired of all my prices going up because of stupid voters and stupid decisions to allow orcs and bizarre adenoidal leaf chewing savages and a fundamentalist Islamist mafia,
The medievalist mafia in Iran.
and various other dictatorships making my quality of life in my golden years worse. I'm sick of it. It's not necessary. We are able to smash these fuckers flat, as the Israelis are proving. All the predictions about the fighting in Gaza were wrong. And I knew they would be wrong because the Israelis, of course, have capabilities that none of these idiots know about. And as for Ukraine, every time Ukraine is written off, they take advantage of that, which is what they're doing now.
Did you see today, Belgorod? We were talking about this yesterday. And a few hours after our conversation, it fucking happened.
Yeah.
Because, of course, Russia, in desperation, because this is an act of desperation, loved a shitload of missiles.
150.
And while the...
150.
150, and while the vast majority was taken down, some did get through, and they hit an apartment building, a residential apartment building in Kyiv, a shopping mall, a maternity ward in a hospital, all of these high value military targets, and the next day, the Ukrainians bombed the fuck out of Belgorod.
And they hit only military targets.
And they hit military targets with something like 50 dead Russians in the process.
Yeah.
And today, Generalissimo Putin is going to the UN because he wants a Security Council resolution to condemn Ukraine for bombing Russia. Imagine that. How dare the Ukrainians decide to bomb outside the country that Putin invaded?
Well, I saw a video of Russian hired mercenaries. One was from Syria, One was from I don't even know where, India, and one was from Somalia. None of them spoke Russian. They'd been given ballistic vests with no plates in them, so they were just cloth.
Yep.
They had like World War II era guns. They had what the Russians are doing now is they're giving them 1936 model steel pots with the camouflage cover of a Kevlar, and the covers were coming off. I mean, and the guy filming was speaking to them, and none of them spoke Russian. So they brought this woman over, and I thought she was going to interpret. She blathered at him for 2 straight minutes in Russian, and they were just kind of going, an Indian who speak English? Where the hell did they find him? I mean, come on. They're hiring Syrians and Somalis, and you're telling me they're winning this war, or that, it's a standstill? It isn't a standstill. The Ukrainians just blew up the latest Russian landing ship.
Yep.
Like a nuclear
with all the missiles inside.
Yeah.
There were parts of the ship miles away. I mean, throughout the city. That is not the effect of a missile hitting the ship. That's the effect of the shitload of missiles in the ship blowing up.
Also, they had to have the intelligence that this was the right ship to hit. They had to have the intelligence about the cargo. So their intelligence was fine.
And all of those Iranian drones in it too,
Everyone was saying that the F-16s they're getting are, marginally better than early 1990s. These are all upgraded to meet today's standards. So what they're
you mean the new ones?
The new ones. They're going to be fitted with Wild Weasel equipment. It's a pod made by Texas Instrument, and they're going to be performing suppression of enemy air defense missions, and they're going to be performing destruction of artillery pieces, and combat air patrols. It turns out it's going to be a full squadron of 24. So everybody's putting out disinformation that people like Tucker Carlson swallow whole, and okay, you'll be very disappointed by the outcome. Putin would not be fucking around with NATO if he was winning in Ukraine. He's looking desperately for any kind of distraction, and
by the way, since you mentioned that, I'm sick and tired of idiots of the ilk of Carlson spewing this shit about Putin had no recourse. We've been saying that we shouldn't be pushing NATO east. As a matter of fact, we were not pushing NATO east.
Putin was. He was pushing NATO west.
Right. We rejected a number of times Ukraine's requests. Ukraine was led to believe that there is no fucking way you're getting into NATO until now. And it was Putin's invasion that caused Finland and Sweden to run towards NATO. It was Putin's invasion that caused NATO to review its stance vis-a-vis Ukraine, and now Ukraine is on a fast track. And there are 3 Balkan countries and 2 Caucasus countries that are now trying to get into the European Union and NATO. If Putin keeps this shit up, even Azerbaijan will join NATO.
Yeah, I mean, Armenia is already performing. Armenia was a member of the Russian NATO. And
yes.
basically they just said, you know what, you guys are losers. They pulled off. They had a big exercise with Americans, and you know they see. What really gets me about all of this, okay, there's reality and then there's falsehoods. Even in our current state, the U.S. military could destroy Russia, Iran, and the Houthis and the Syrians and Hezbollah.
Throw China in there too.
And China, all on the same day, and without breaking a sweat. We don't have to do that. We don't have to have a demonstration of power. All we have to do is do what Trump did to Putin in Syria, where he ordered the complete annihilation, not this battalion tactical group, stop it. No, annihilate, wipe it out. And I recently learned that we bombed them for 12 straight hours.
Yep.
By that time, we were bombing wreckage and corpses, but we did it for the onlookers to go, I don't want that to happen to me.
We did it so there would be a radio message recorded from the asshole in the Russian battalion. It's raining artillery. Please get us out of.
Yeah. Yeah.
It had a very, very strong psychological message for Russia.
It did. And
it was at the time the largest number of casualties for Russians since World War II in a single event. Not anymore, by the way.
No, but it is still the largest military defeat the United States has ever inflicted on Russia.
Yeah.
So that was Putin. That was Trump, who now they've dug up the Trump is Putin's agent. No,
again,
Biden is Putin's agent.
Yeah,
that's provable.
Oh God, and we have the transfers to the Biden LLCs to prove it.
Yeah. So, and this is why we're slow walking aid to Ukraine, because there's this excuse given that we don't want to provoke the Russians. We could provoke them all we want. What are they going to do about it? Nothing. They can't do anything about it. They're using up their last T-80 and T-90 tanks in these suicidal attacks that get wiped out immediately. And there's this claim that, they've got their factories up and running. They're going to build.
They're being blown up too, from Moscow to the Urals.
Well, okay, you're right. They're getting blown up, but they don't have the electronics to put. They don't have the means to modernize their T-80s and their T-90s. So basically, they're just going to be creating shells that look like them, but they won't perform any better than a T-62.
At best, yeah.
So it's I don't know. I just it in the end, it doesn't matter what Tucker Carlson says, but at the same time, you get tired of hearing this someone with a loudspeaker just blaring out this idiocy, like idiocy that can be disproven in 3 seconds.
Yeah.
And all these
But I mildly disagree with you. I think it does matter.
Well,
I think that he leads a lot of people by the nose.
Yes.
And a lot of people who end up essentially shilling for Democrats. Oh, don't vote for the rhinos. And by the way, have you noticed how all of these imbeciles always spell it RHI?
Yeah, because they don't know what it means. It's something
they don't even know what that means. It's frustrating. But he is feeding this group. And when elections are so close, 100,000 of these assholes in key locations are more than enough.
But, okay, in the current political climate, it doesn't matter. speaking of failure, that idiot Secretary of State in Maine who disqualified Trump from the primary ballot. She's an appallingly repulsive face and voice of the Democratic Party. And what the Democrats have done that they don't understand is they've made Trump represents freedom, and they've made him a martyr for freedom. And that's exactly, I mean, this is a 50-year-old woman who sounds like she's trying to talk like an 18-year-old.
I mean, she's an escapee from the Encino Man, remember?
Yeah.
Let me show people what we mean. There we go.
The 14th Amendment. And finally, in reviewing the facts presented, the evidence, the law, the history, we determined under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment that Mr. Trump engaged in insurrection and therefore was disqualified.
Oh, wait, who the fuck is we?
That's the royal we.
That's the royal we, but we determined, isn't that for a court of law to determine?
No, actually, it's for Congress to determine. Congress, I mean, this has already been ruled on by the Supreme Court. And Justice Roberts said in 2010 that the 14th Amendment doesn't apply to elected officials. And so, okay, I know that people think that the Democrats know what they're doing. They're doing this, they're doing. The repercussions are that when the public sees that all of this is lies, the way they're seeing that the Democrats are lying about the border, they're going to have a reaction to it. And this isn't penetrating because of the ossification of the thought processes of these people. It's the same ossification that allowed Hamas to make the suicidal attack on October 7th, and the ossification that caused Putin to think he could take Ukraine in 3 days. So, it's when people have had it their own way for this long, they don't know what to do when they're confronted with a challenge. And
no,
Trump is a challenge.
And he's going to be more of a challenge after January 15.
Oh, yeah.
But let me put a little bit more about this idiot. And look at this journalist asking questions too, because ink shitters come in all sizes and colors.
Now, I have to say, not only is this an incredibly important decision, but it's a very brave decision.
Oh, important and brave, mind you.
Has already come out attacking you. They have said that you are a virulent leftist and a hyper-partisan Biden-supporting Democrat.
No shit, Sherlock.
It's important to know my oath to the Constitution, my obligations to the Constitution and rule of law come before any other consideration. No other factors could weigh on that decision and did not. I'm duty bound to both hold a hearing and make a ruling. And under the law, there's a very compressed timeline. In evaluating this, I came to the conclusion that I could not, unfortunately or fortunately, wait for the United States Supreme Court to make a decision.
Unfortunately or fortunately, I could not wait for the courts to decide.
I did today. I smile because we were #1 in voter turnout per capita in 2022. We are really proud of that. And we have a really...
Yeah, don't smile, honey.
Don't smile so much, honey, because you may lose your smile. Damn. By the way, I have to thank a number of people there. Thank you all who are sending your super chats, very much appreciated. And salam alaikum, Faisal. Always a pleasure to see you here. Not even the Colorado Secretary of State did that, they say. No, Nobody did that. This woman, who was not elected to this position, who was appointed, and I love how Democrats say she was elected by the legislator. No, that's an appointment, you
That's an
cretins.
appointment.
So she was appointed by the legislature, which is the way it's done in Maine. She does not have powers to determine if a crime has been committed or not. Period. End of story. And when she says, well, fortunately or unfortunately, we couldn't wait for the courts to decide. Wow, that is like the perfect excuse for lynching, isn't it?
Of course.
I can see her, talking like a freaking valley girl in the in the 80s. Like that stupid blonde in Friends.
Mm-hmm.
We can't wait for the court. We couldn't wait for the courts to decide, so we had to act, and we did because we are duty bound. Where the hell? Really? I mean, I love Maine. My family goes back 200 years in Maine. I know down unders well. They have to be eating their guns and hands, listening to this shit as if somebody was scratching a blackboard. Where did they find this character?
I mean, she's willing to do it. I mean, these people. Okay, someone like Putin in 2008 or thereabouts, Putin said that the point isn't to have a powerful army, but to give the impression of having, or powerful armed forces is to give the impression of having powerful armed forces. Well, by 2022, he'd become delusional. He believed that his ramshackle armed forces were powerful. If you lie long enough,
that was Saddam's trick.
If you lie long enough, you start to believe your own lies. And I'm sure on a certain level, I don't think that woman actually thinks this is a cynical ploy that she knows will be overturned. I think she honestly believes she's doing good. And
I agree with you.
And this is why it's necessary to make sure we never have delusional people in office. But again, this is the voters.
Well, you're talking about banning the Democrats now.
Well, I'm talking about voters being intelligent, which is not possible. Voters are idiots, and I do believe that in the end they'll do the right thing. But again, they had to stick their finger in the wall socket. They were told, if you do that, you're going to get a huge, massive shock that's going to burn your finger. They said, well, how do you know? I saw this. What did I see? It was a training film, and it was about a naval. It was how to fire the machine guns on your naval fighter in World War II. And
World War II. No, that's a good
World War II, yeah. And I don't know anything about flying a fighter aircraft in World War II. There were like 100 different steps you have to take, to make sure it's safe. You have to clear the guns before you fire. You have to do all this stuff. And they had somebody who decided he didn't, why do I got to do that? I don't want to. I'm going to do this. Then he would kill someone. And the whole notion that you can just kind of, okay, my poor neighbor, she blew out one of her discs in her back. She was bending over to pick up her luggage, and she heard a loud pop, and she felt incredible pain going down her legs and everything. And she managed to get home. She was on vacation, and she was told by her doctor that she needed a chest to tailbone, what do you call it, brace, and she had to wear it for at least 8 months because this was really bad. Well, she didn't want to, so she just went out and she got one of those little Velcro back supports. It's got a little pad,
Yes.
soft pad you put in the small of your back, and you Velcro it around your waist. And she said, "Now I can."
Oh, I had to use them a couple of years ago.
Right, and
Yeah,
and
remember a couple of years ago when I thought I was Superman?
yeah.
And I had to use that for 6 months.
Well, she was told by her doctor that she needed to have like a medical brace that
Right.
fitted. She was given an appointment, and she figured she didn't need it. Well, she's now jacked up her back so bad that she can barely move, and she's 70 years old. She's 100 pounds overweight. She can't do anything. She's immobile, and
There's a walker in there.
yeah, and she doesn't want to walk her because that'll make her feel old. And it's like, I don't know what to tell you. And you tell somebody you can't elect Biden. He's gonna destroy your life. Well, you don't know that. How do I know that? Well, you look at his record. That's what you do. He's incompetent.
I remember in 2020, even with some Republicans, I was telling everybody and their mother, what is this country gone fucking nuts? If they elect this idiot, you guys all need psychiatric treatment. And, well, it's not as bad as you think. No, it's worse than I thought.
Of course.
Now they're beginning to kind of say, oh, I can't understand what he's doing. Well, asshole, it's not as bad as you thought.
Yeah.
Of course it is. It's you and I lost our voices here 3 years ago, wondering if the country had gone fucking mad. Yes, it has.
Mm-hmm.
And the worst thing is he's not even the worst.
No.
Kamala Harris is a national disgrace.
Well, they all are. Where's Pete Buttigieg? He's the invisible secretary.
Well, fortunately, he hasn't been seen. I think he's probably on yet another maternity leave. How about our admiral of the health service?
No, yeah.
The fatso with a wig.
Well, the Secretary of Defense had the brilliant idea of recruiting the Houthis to fight Al Qaeda, when both of them were Al Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula.
Yeah.
Both of them were creatures of the same entity that was running the show.
The Houthis were a branch of Al Qaeda, for crying out fucking loud, back in the day when they were Ansar Allah.
And this is beyond his comprehension. But he's Secretary of Defense. And all of this.
Yeah, the moving company, the little shit, the only thing he knows how to do is order a retreat.
Yeah.
He's worse than the French. Maybe he's French. I mean, the only thing he knows how to do is raise the white flag, order a retreat.
Well, okay, that's another. I mean, the withdrawal from Afghanistan remains a disgrace, and everyone just lies about it. everyone on his team just lies about it. And I don't know. I mean, that's
to me, it is the most shameful moment in American history, bar none.
Yeah, it's even worse than the the helicopter taking off from the Hanoi.
God. Yes.
Embassy,
Exponentially worse.
or Saigon embassy, rather.
Now you know that somebody told this imbecile Austin about all the weapons, and he had the gall in the press conference to say, we didn't leave any weapons for the Taliban. Who are you going to believe, me or your lying eyes?
Well, this is the thing. I mean, it's just, I mean, these people they lie, and now they believe their own lies. And my communist brother in New York City steadfastly denied that Biden had any cognitive problems. He just didn't believe it. I just don't believe it. That's no answer. That, I just don't believe it. You can say that to any sort of statement made by anybody. The sun is going to rise in the east and set in the west. Well, I just don't believe you. I don't believe you.
Well, maybe in an obscure way he's right, you see, because in order to have cognitive problems, you have to have a level of cognizance. I think Biden can shit his legs and not figure it out.
Well,
I think he's brain dead.
The thing that gets me is that this is all done in service of. It's not being done to support Biden. It's being done to oppose Trump. And it's like, you have to ask people what's so bad about Trump. Mean tweets, okay, whatever. I never read them.
Braggadocio.
As much as I support Trump, I never read his tweets unless they were brought to my attention. I didn't go to his timeline every day and go, what has he said today? What else? He's corrupt. There's no evidence of that.
He called a pig a pig.
He called a pig a pig.
Yes.
What, Rosie O'Donnell?
Right. I mean, calling Rosie O'Donnell a pig is frankly no discourtesy. He's stating the obvious.
Well, also, I mean, he wasn't president when he called her a pig.
Exactly. But he reiterated it later, too, The
whole thing is these are all like, none of this stuff matters. It's like, can he do the job? Yes, he did the job exceptionally well.
Yep.
And
it's schoolyard stuff, I know what you mean.
And Mr. Decency is a catastrophe. And
not to mention the fact that Mr. Decency is an indecent son of a bitch.
Of course,
I'm gonna bring decency back into the White House. Sure.
Yeah.
Trans bitches parading around the Rose Garden, dancing with their titties. That awful shit they did for the Christmas pageant. With a bunch of talentless hacks parading around like a nightmare. He didn't bring decency into the White House. He brought indecency into the White House in levels that would have landed people in jail not so long ago.
Well, but see, this is all about tearing down standards. And this is the way people who hate everything and who don't want to take showers and hate being told what to do, this is how they live. And they're not content with living by themselves and stinking and closing the door so there's nobody there who can tell them what to do. they have to go out and make sure that those of us who do like order in our lives won't have it. I knew this woman who lived in Massachusetts. She once said that she wanted to buy a mansion in Beverly Hills and cover the front lawn and toilets. And I said, why? And she had no answer. It was just, it was just like
Statement.
this making a brainless statement of hate. And it's like, but why? She never thought about that. She never thought, in her little mind, she thought about that this would be a big raised middle finger to all these, rich people? Well, if you're buying a mansion in Beverly Hills, you got to be pretty rich yourself, honey.
Yeah, I was going to say, but I remember when I was in Pacific Palisades, my neighbors, some were total assholes, but there was such a variety, such a diversity among my neighbors there that I don't think these people have any idea of. People make money in different ways, One of them was a secretary at Microsoft in the early days. She made a fucking shitload. Does she belong to a special class because of that?
Well, see, I mean,
they are the classist little fuckers, aren't they?
Well, classist and utterly conformist. I saw a documentary about the punk band, the Dead Kennedys, and the Dead Kennedys, they started in 1978, and by the 1980s, the early 1980s, they were writing songs about, they were leftists, but they were writing songs about the suffocating conformity imposed on leftists by other leftists.
Mm-hmm.
They wrote a song called California Uber Alles about Jerry Brown, and how the suede, the denim and suede secret police are coming to take away your happiness.
Yeah.
And this was 1980. I think they did this.
Yeah, so, I think it was 80 or 81.
Yeah. So they were leftists who hated leftism. And, they were young. I don't know what their politics are now. But it and that's why I didn't like punk, is that it was same. If you took a hardcore punk record and moved the needle anywhere on the record,
it didn't matter where it fell.
It was identical. And okay, you're rebelling, but why not let those people live the way they want over there, and then you can live the way you want over here, and twain shall meet?
No, because they stand against, say, the uniform is to create their own uniform.
Exactly.
So I'm not wearing a suit and tie because I'm not going to wear that corporate uniform. We have to be free. But then if you don't wear denim and suede, or black leather and shit hanging from your nose, you're not accepted, because essentially what they're not rebelling against the uniform, they're replacing one with another.
Yeah, if you're a punk, you have to wear a black t-shirt. And no, I just, leftism has nothing to recommend it at this point, and the Tucker Carlson form of whatever it is, populism or
no, he's a fucking collectivist. He is a true fascist, down to the Mussolini definition of fascism.
Well, he's definitely an authoritarian in that he's demanding solutions that can't be carried out without some form of authoritarian government. Because if people are voting for politicians who give us open borders, then so be it. Everything that's happening now, Tucker, is not happening is not being done by some nefarious cabal of illegitimate political leaders. They were all elected. They were all duly elected.
Yes. And it's been building up for the past 20 years.
Oh, more than that. More than
Hey,
that.
have we forgotten the Obama years with the border?
Well, okay, I have Netflix and Amazon Prime, so I get to see a lot of movies that were made a long time ago. And I've been struck by movies made 30 years ago. We're talking about the plight of illegal aliens.
Yes.
And every frigging movie at some point shows like a pickup truck, a stake bed pickup truck, and it's got a guy with a cowboy hat and a check shirt. He's a Mexican illegal. His wife wearing her shawl and cradling a baby, and they've crossed the border, and they're pobrecitos, and they're, you know, they need pity on them, and it's a and they help the protagonist of the movie hide from the villains. And, you know, he dons the uniform of an illegal, and the villains don't think he's, they miss the fact that his skin is very pale and his eyes are blue. But even 30 years ago, the illegals were poor but noble, and they were used but heroic. And I look at all that now, and I just feel such,
And you realize what they were doing.
well, I just feel such hostility, because I used to say these are nobody's victims. They would walk all the way across the desert, and then when they get here, they figure out how to play every goddamn system there is. They get fake IDs, they get fake driver's licenses, they get fake insurance, they buy cars.
They know where to get those
Yes,
better than you.
I have no idea. I would have to ask my neighbors next door. It's they game the system, and there's no doubt about it. That, you know, California is very open about it. Come to California, and we'll give you welfare and health insurance for free.
And by the way, please tell me this is not an enticement. You're telling the hordes of malnourished cretins in South America, come to California, we'll let you in and we'll give you free health care. I'm surprised there's anybody left in Ecuador.
Well, under the Bush years, the Pentagon released a position paper that illegals, Mexican illegals, we had to allow this because it was a safety valve. And if we closed down the border, then there would be a coup. Then we'd have to go in and topple the illegitimate government and, you know, occupy and rebuild Mexico. So now we have an open border, and guess what? The cartels have taken over the country.
The cartels took over Mexico and the border, and the people coming into this country are not the Mexican poor.
No.
Because frankly, another thing that nobody talks about, because every time you talk about illegal immigration, you are anti-Mexican. Mexicans are not number one. In fact, they're not in the top 10 of the number of people coming. There are China, Pakistan, Venezuela.
Russia.
We have Russia. We have ships bringing. You know that back in the day, if you wanted to travel America on foot, I did most of it. One thing you could not do was cross the Darien Strait.
Mm-hmm.
You had to take a boat in Colombia, whether it is in the Caribbean or the Pacific, into Panama, because Darien was impassable.
Mm-hmm.
There were no roads. There were no nothing. It was the thickest fucking jungle, filled with 1,000 ways to kill you. They made a road. They made an entrail through the Darien Strait, for crying out loud.
Sure.
And now you have Chinese ships that drop their human cargo, and they have camps with tens of thousands of Chinese who then walk through the Darien Strait into Panama, cross the Panama Canal Zone, and make it up to Ciudad Hidalgo in Mexico after passing through several countries. And Mexico gives them temporary visas that are valid only for moving from the southern to the northern border in the shortest possible fucking time. And we have tens of thousands of Chinese crossing the border, Lebanese.
It's an industry.
It's an industry. And I don't know if you saw the latest pictures. You know, I see all the pictures. Oh, they're coming again. And you have this mass of people coming, and they have a cross and a fucking priest leading the march.
Of course, because...
But nobody talks about it.
Well, because the church needs asses in its pews. And
Bingo.
You know...
And Catholic voters.
Well, people making donations. I got something from, I don't know, some church, I think the LA diocese, and it was asking my parents if they wanted it, you know, they hadn't heard from them in a while, and they're wondering if they wanted to make their customary $30,000 donation. And it's like, you were donating $30,000 to the LA diocese after that frigging archbishop he was literally thrown out on his ass. I don't know.
Yeah, after he threw himself over many a 9-year-old ass.
Well, it's and then the final irony is when both my parents died, they renounced their religion in a last desperate attempt to deny their impending deaths. You know, if I'm not dead, if I'm not religious, you know, you're religious in order to prepare you for the afterlife. If I'm not religious, that means that I don't have to worry about an afterlife, which means, you know, I mean, it was just, they were both totally irrational. And I thought, given all the money and all the times they'd given to the church and all the times they'd gone to mass, that they would be serene about their deaths. Didn't happen that way.
Maybe they figure out they were had. Yeah. But I'm serious, Thomas. All of this shit with Catholic charities, with Pastoral del Migrante, with the hostels for migrants, with the indoctrination, the organization, the funding that goes into these, and nobody talks about it.
No,
it's like the third rail.
Yeah,
but every one of these comes with the cross and the priest right at the front.
Yeah. No, and okay, I mean, I don't know. Cartel members have their own little shrines in their mansions, yes, where they pray to various saints.
Yes, they each have their own patron saint and all that jazz, and they're very religious, and they sustain the church in their communities.
Exactly.
And if you so much as look askance at a church, they get a special treatment for you.
Yeah. No, one of the cartels is called the Knights Templar. And
oh boy.
They were one of the worst. They still might be around, I'm not sure. The Russians, you see Russians, you know, they have the fake priests that are all FSB agents, you know, blessing the bombs.
Yeah.
No, I mean it's again. I have nothing.
Well, not all of them. Not all of them are fake. Remember that the Patriarch of Moscow is so far up Putin's ass he can't breathe. They had to throw a little tube with oxygen for him.
Right. And none of this is to say that there aren't devout people with their beliefs.
No,
live by these beliefs, but it's when
No,
you
no,
get
not at all. Not at all.
when you get to this part where you have the Russian Orthodox Church actively taking part in the war. The
Yeah.
reason the Ukrainians closed the Russian Orthodox churches in their country is because they were all spying for the Russians.
And by the way, let me say something, because one of our good friends in Quod Verum is a priest in the Russian Orthodox
Sure.
Church, but he is in what is called the Russian Orthodox Church outside of Russia.
Right.
During the Soviet Union, the Patriarch of Moscow was in bed with the communists.
Mhm.
So Russian Orthodoxy in the US and elsewhere separated from the Patriarch of Moscow and created their own thing independent of the politicization of the church in the Soviet Union. Those people are no more controlled by the pro-Putin patriarch than they were controlled by the pro-Soviet patriarch. So, unfortunately, a lot of people in America are not aware of these divisions, and they go and throw shit and paint walls at the Rocco churches in America, and that is not only regrettable, but quite upsetting. And when I speak of the church financing and supporting and providing logistics for the caravans of illegals throughout South America and Central America and into the US, I'm not speaking of the faithful. I'm not speaking of the parish priest in Cleveland. I'm speaking of the church as a political organization. The faithful have nothing to do with this. They are the first victims. In many cases, they are forced through, let's say, emotional chantage. I'm trying to look for the word here, but they're being forced through manipulation of their emotions into financing something they disagree with strongly. But they don't really know where it goes. And the silence in our media is deafening.
Sure.
How can they know what's being done in their name and with their money if nobody's talking about it?
Yeah, I mean,
Uh-oh. We just lost Thomas. Let's wait a second. I'm going to go through the chat for a second while we see if Thomas comes back. The Russian priest was actually blessing a missile called Satan, says Faisal.
yes.
There we are. I thought you had abandoned me.
No, I pressed the wrong button.
Yeah, Faisal from Saudi is telling us that the Russian priest was actually blessing a missile called Satan.
Yeah, the Satan bomb.
Isn't that interesting?
No, I mean,
but yeah,
I was just going to say that all of this stuff is so dead. Russia as a world power, dead, dead, dead. The Democrats doing right by people, dead, dead, dead.
China as a superpower that is going to overtake the world.
No.
Epic failure.
What did Tucker Carlson say? It was some weird comment about the Palestinians can't be dangerous because we're importing them here as refugees. And it's like, did you actually just say that? I mean,
yeah.
Do you make a distinction between like a Palestinian refugee and Hamas? I mean, no, because to him, a Palestinian is a terrorist, and I don't know. It's so dishonest.
I don't know, but let's face it, we're importing a lot of assholes.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, including terrorists. Come on.
Yes.
Those the Boston bombers are refugees who got free everything, and in thanks,
Tsarnaevs.
yeah, they blew up the Boston Marathon.
Yeah, well, we have about 280 that the Department of Homeland Insecurity has admitted were in the terror list. And by the way, I love how mystical people get. Being in a terror list means that you have connections with terrorism. Not being in the terror list doesn't mean you don't.
Of course not. I mean, they can't.
Okay, so
there's a lot of spectacles.
And yeah, and I have to say this because people are mystical about the list. Oh, well, only 280 were in the list. Number one, 280 is a shitload. 280 is 10 9/11s.
Yeah.
Just to put it mildly. Or, let me see, 100. Remember the bombs in New York City? In Hell's Kitchen?
Yeah.
280 is enough for 100 of these events.
Yeah.
But the thing is, the actual number is closer to 5,000.
See, the arguments that are being made right now are sophistry. You know, it's just complete dishonesty,
Yeah.
and it's very simple. There's no country in the world that doesn't have an unregulated border. Okay, one of my favorite movies is Touch of Evil, which was made in '58, and it's Charlton Heston playing a Mexican very badly. They painted his face brown, but he's marveling over the close ties between our two countries. You know, we have 3,000 miles of borders, not a single machine gun turret anywhere, no barbed wire, and it's like, well, but see, that's what we need now. We didn't need it in 1958. Well, we did because Eisenhower proved it. We needed it, but we need it, and
Absolutely.
it doesn't matter whose feelings we hurt. You know, it's blue states can send their own 747s to Mexico and load them up with illegals and bring them back to their blue state and
Kennedy Airport. Yeah.
Right.
Provided they don't leave that state.
Exactly. They can be in that state and they will get no federal funds. It'll all be up to the state to pay for them. Yeah. But I mean, what we're seeing is madness. It's complete madness.
Absolutely. And by the way, it can be. I'm going to give you a bit of news that I know you're going to enjoy. And oh, by the way, Sarah Bangas just popped up in the chat. She was sailing through the Suez Canal yesterday, so I can't wait to prod her in Quod Verum to get fresh news of sailing the Red Sea and the Suez Canal in our present predicament. You know about Milei. Milei is a representation of the epic failure of socialism in Argentina. Things have gotten so fucking bad. Inflation last month was 1.2% per day. 1.2% per day is a rate of inflation of 7,500 per year. Okay, and everybody was going apeshit here when we hit 8. One of the problems they had in Argentina was smuggling through the border with Bolivia. You see, part of the populism in Argentina meant that certain foodstuffs were heavily subsidized to mask the results of their fiscal policies. So prices were kept artificially low. Of course, to do that, they had to go through every last fucking dime in reserve in the central bank, which presently holds 0 reserves. Bolivians quickly figured out that if they bought foodstuffs in Argentina, heavily subsidized foodstuffs, they could in turn enjoy very cheap stuff. So flour, rice, meats. And Bolivia, and of course, the government of Argentina was subsidizing the food consumption in Bolivia by this singular. One of the things the new president did, remember he's been in office today is 3 weeks. He built a ditch alongside the border. You're following me on this one?
Uh-huh.
In 3 weeks were enough to send the caterpillars and dig a fucking trench and put guards. And no more contraband in, that means no drugs, or out, that means no subsidizing foodstuffs for Bolivia. The price of flour in Bolivia has gone up 150% in the past week as the supply of subsidized stuffs from Argentina dried out. Can you protect the border? Listen, if a country broke as Argentina is, can solve their border problem in less than 3 weeks and put a tight control on the importation of drugs or the exportation of anything, do you think the U.S. doesn't have the means to do it?
Well, see, Ann Coulter is now rabidly anti-Trump. It's very personal with her because maybe he turned her down, when she offered herself, or who knows. But she was talking about how he didn't fulfill his promise on the border. How much border funding did Trump get from the Democrats? He had to, as I recall, he had to scrounge money from various programs that, had surpluses. And this is...
And fight lawsuits, because whenever he tried to use those funds, there would be a lot of lawfare to stop him. So it was always 2 years delayed until the Supreme Court said, yes, he can use those funds.
Yeah. So again, we're back to the voters, and the voters vote for people who want open borders. And then the voters complain. The voters in Chicago or in New York, they're very upset about the illegals. And it's like, but you voted for the people who made that happen. And, you can't make that connection. I know. But
I mean, come on. You elect for mayor a fucking communist from the teachers union. What the fuck did you expect?
I don't know. I mean, they were talking. I saw some town hall meeting. They were talking to him like he didn't, like he was going to, like he'd made some kind of mistake. Like he didn't know what impact this is having. Of course he knows. He doesn't give a shit. He doesn't care. We had a city councilman here named Mark Ridley Thomas, and he's finally going to prison. Everybody knew he was corrupt. He spent $3 million decorating his office. And every time people would point out, I say we, it was LA City Council. Every time people would point out anything that he was doing nefarious, he would scream racism because he's black. And they got him for corruption, they got him for bribery, they got him for everything under the sun, and he's finally going to prison, and screaming racism the whole way. So he was a fixture. He was there for decades, and this is Maxine Waters. I mean, all the worst sorts of politicians who and what leftist voters refuse to understand is that the people they vote for have a vested interest in making sure that their lives, the voters' lives, are horrible, because then the politicians can point to people like Trump and say it's his fault, and reelect me and I'll fix the problem. And they go, okay. It was like on the other side of the political coin, when John McCain was running for re-election, and he said, build a
for election.
for re-election.
Oh, for re-election, the Senate race in Arizona?
Yeah. And so he became a border hawk. Build a dang wall. And, at the time I said, everybody knows he's lying, but it worked. They voted for him. And then like literally the day after he was voted, he said, I never said that. What are you talking about? I never said that. So, and everyone went, go. But it's like, you voted for him. I have no sympathy whatsoever. Just like you voted for Mitt Romney.
Remember the kids coming through the border during the abomination?
Yeah. And all the Democrats crying and
130,000 children, unaccompanied minors.
Yeah.
Who were put, incidentally, in the same cages that Trump later used after cleaning them up, but it was Trump's cages, not Obama's.
Yeah.
Look at this. This is, I think, in one short video, the best synthesis of the dismal failure of Biden's border policy. Let's see.
¿Ah?
¿Me puede ayudar?
¿Qué pasó?
Es que yo venía con un grupo de personas y me dejaron botar y no sé dónde están.
No sabes dónde están. ¿Te dejaron solo?
Pues claro, me dejaron botar.
¿Te dejaron solo botado?
Solo.
¿No vienes con mami o con papi o con nadie?
¿Ah?
¿Vienes con tu mamá o tu papá?
Nadie. Yo venía en un grupo que venía de entrega con usted y al final me dejaron botado y venía aquí a pedir auxilio.
¿Te dejaron botado y te dijeron que vinieras a pedir auxilio?
No, yo vengo porque si no, ¿por dónde me voy a ir? Allí voy a dejar y tal vez me pueden robar, secuestrar o algo.
Te pueden robar.
Tengo miedo.
¿Tienes miedo? Ok. Ahorita hablamos, ¿ok?
Okay. That is Biden's border.
Mm-hmm.
That is Biden's border.
Yeah.
Now, that kid would have been a pile of bones in the desert if the border patrol doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Don't tell me. By the way, he doesn't sound Mexican to me.
No.
He sounds from farther south, considerably farther south. He could be Venezuelan.
Well, also, I mean, he's used to
What mother
to getting.
Do you know?
He's used to getting his own way by crying.
Yeah, that too. But what mother would lose the kid in that place? You have visibility for miles.
Yeah. No,
Is it credible?
No, it's not. The whole thing is they did that so he could get in the country, and he's got a plan. They've got a plan. It's
Yeah.
I mean, the whole thing is
Now, if Trump instructs the border patrol that kid should go into a detention facility until some proven family member can pick him up, or be given to social services. He is cruel. But what are they going to do with this kid?
Well, the Democrats want to turn him over to some so-called charity that'll like basically sell him. They'll give him to somebody who will traffic him. No, it's somebody did a montage of all the outrage about the Trump border with all these bitches like AOC and I forgot her name, Tlaib, and
Rashida.
the one who's now bald because she claims she has alopecia.
Cory Bush?
Presley.
Oh, no, the Presley woman, yes.
Yeah, and or maybe it was Cory Bush. I don't know. I can't tell them apart.
No, that it's so difficult to tell one turd from another.
And then they're pointing out now that Biden's president, crickets. Well, it was like Mavis Leno, Jay Leno's wife, was an advocate for Afghan women until Bush freed them, and then she couldn't say anything. She couldn't praise Bush for freeing them.
No. She became an advocate against the war. Now the Afghan women are taking it in the ass again.
Yeah.
And they're resuscitating. Oh, look at the plight of the Afghan. Hey, asshole. We had that problem solved. You created it again.
Yeah, also you voted for the guy who did this. He said he was going to do it.
Yeah.
So, this is why I'm not emotionally invested in any of this, because it's all got a cause, and the cause is the voter. Biden does what he does because he was voted for. And the voters continually bitch and then elect or re-elect the people who are torturing them. So, it's like, stop bitching. I don't want to hear it.
No, I've had it with it. Speaking of dismal failures, because we started talking about these beautiful, awesome failures. The failure of the Peronists in Argentina, to me, is something that I never thought I would see in my lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
The failure of Russia is, I believe, evident to all but the willfully blind,
of course,
including Carlson, Q-tards, and other imbeciles. And they keep acting as if there were no Europe.
Yeah.
Because everything is the U.S., it's so U.S.-centered. Bullshit. Europe is put more pressure into the Ukraine war than the U.S. in absolute terms, and a much larger amount in relative terms.
I think basically the Estonians gave up their entire armed forces.
Yes.
I know the Finns gave up their entire inventory of self-propelled howitzers.
Yes, and the Dutch have just given up their entire fleet of F-16s.
Yeah.
And Czechia, which is the name for what we used to call the Czech Republic, is now being confronted by Russia because they are the ones who supply the weapons that the Ukrainians use to bomb the fuck out of Belgorod. Is saying the Prime Minister of Czechia is saying without ambiguities that they are going to support Ukraine come what may until the last Russian is out of Ukraine. And you hear this thing from all over Europe because they know what happens if Putin consolidates ill-gotten gains. Only in the U.S. are imbeciles proposing the idea that we need a peace deal where Putin gets to keep the occupied territories.
Well, okay, here's a point. Tucker Carlson says that people are more concerned with Ukraine than our own country, then if he's so concerned with our own country and not Ukraine, why is he desperately demanding a peace deal where Ukraine surrenders? Why is he sticking his nose into that if he's you can't have it both ways. You can't say that you're not allowed to support Ukraine, but you're
allowed to support Russia.
Yeah, you're a good American by demanding that the war stop, and the Russians be rewarded for their invasion.
Yeah.
So
you can't rule Europe out, and since it is Europe and not Russia that is the largest fucking trading partner outside of Canada and Mexico, and since it is Europe that we count on to keep NATO, we're going to have to keep on sending whatever we can, reluctantly as Biden has. But we're going to send it.
Yeah, no, and my guess is that Biden and Austin don't really know what's going on. I think that they assume that the Ukrainians were going to get sort of archaic F-16s, and instead they got F-16s that are up to par with our most modern F-16s.
Yeah, because they're getting them from the Low Countries. Holland is upgraded the F-16s they're going to deliver. They're not doing the thing that we are doing.
Yeah.
What we are doing is sending to Ukraine shit that was decommissioned 30 years ago.
Right. And the bizarre, I mean, the only, the people in this country who support Russia, I mean, there's nothing in Russia to support.
No.
The claim that Putin is an anti-globalist is a lie.
Absolutely.
Putin thrives on globalism.
That's how he's been able to steal billions upon billions from the Russian people for his personal benefit.
Yeah. I mean, if Russia wasn't a party to globalism, then Putin wouldn't have the money he's been able to steal. They claim that Putin is for traditional family values. No, he isn't. He promised all his wounded troops, I think, 1 million rubles, and now they're each getting a bag of onions. I mean,
yeah, which is about $1,000, frankly.
Yeah, which is better than a bag of onions. I mean, you come back with one leg gone, and you get a bag of onions. A bag of onions.
Isn't that wonderful?
I mean, unless you have a very large family, onions.
I mean, at the very least, we're talking Russians, a bag of onions and a bottle of vodka.
No, I mean, Putin.
Idiots.
Putin wants all the vodka for himself.
True.
But, I mean, what is there to recommend the Russians? What is there to recommend Putin? I mean,
nothing.
When I say the Russians, I don't mean every Russian individual. There's perfect.
No. You're talking about Russia, the country, not individual Russians.
Right.
We're not talking about Tolstoy. We're talking about Russia.
No, the Russians as they exist as a group are definitely the ones that are in Ukraine are orcs. There's another piece of footage of them summarily murdering surrendering prisoners, and these were Spetsnaz, their so-called elite, and
yes,
but
there are no more elite troops.
No,
they're all dead.
The Russians are like the Mexican cartels in that the cartels measure manliness by mercilessness.
Yes.
And so do the Russians. The cartels, they have no fighting prowess. There have been cases where, 5 Mexican cops have wiped out an entire convoy of gun trucks because the cops are trained. And, the cartels, they're manly because they're merciless. That's not a sign of manliness. And it's the same with the Russians. They're not trained in the slightest. They murder and they torture and they rape. And that's how they prove how manly they are. And that's that's like, what are you, an Aztec? I mean, what century?
No, they're worse.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
The Aztecs have some plausible excuses for their behavior. These assholes don't. They're no better than Hamassholes.
True.
This is the kind of depravity that comes from 70 years of fascism and communism. A total lack of value for human life. What moves most Americans is unknown in these parts of the world.
Yeah. No, I saw a police video where a drunk 21-year-old Russian woman crashed her car into a moving train and survived, and then ran from the crash scene. And she was immediately captured and was like the worst bitch you've ever heard in your life. And she spoke English fluently. And I'm just really glad I wasn't there, because I would have said something like, you're proving that you're just a savage. I mean, here you are in the United States. You've obviously got money. You're telling me, you're threatening me with your father's money. But no matter how much money you have, no matter how many things you have, no matter how many times you get your own way, you're always going to be a Russian. Think about that. You can't escape your primitive, unpleasant background. Like you're in the best country in the world. And what do? You get drunk. You're just a typical Russian drunk. You crash your car. You run away like a child. And then you're a bitch when you're caught. And
you know the saying in Spanish, la mona, aunque se vista de seda, mona queda. You can dress a monkey in a silk dress, and it's still a monkey.
Yeah.
You can get this woman out of Russia. You cannot get Russia out of her.
No.
They are savages. They're culturally eunuchs. Like I said, generation. And by the way, before communism, it wasn't even better. These people were serfs. Their parents and grandparents and great-grandparents going all the way to Sviatoslav, raping the daughter of the Count of Polotsk. They have countless generations of serfs. People who either bend and kiss the ground the Tsar walks in, or get appointed to a government position and fuck everybody else. It was the same during communism.
Yeah.
And it is the same now.
Well, I saw a documentary. Remember when Russian mail order brides were really big? I saw a documentary.
Oh, yeah.
It was 3 men who'd married Russians. And these were all success stories, but not at all in the way that the men had expected. And one of them was a woman who spoke almost completely unaccented English. And she was so grateful to be in the United States that she was an incredibly pleasant person. And she said, the most amazing thing about my life now, I have 2 children. I have an extremely nice, loving, respectful husband. And I now have the free time to indulge in my hobby of painting. And she was a painter. So she was a mother and a homemaker and a wife and a painter. And the husband was like, I never knew I could be so happy that I don't know what I was expecting. It wasn't, he said, she's a partner and she's no more. He said, I wouldn't dream of dominating her any more than I would agree to be dominated myself. Perfect story. Then there was a guy in Las Vegas who went to find a nice, subservient Russian woman. He married this woman, and she told him, I'm not going to be your subservient woman. I'm going to be your partner. Teach me how to do your business. So he did. And they became buddies and they became partners. She had a great business head. She gave him some great ideas and they became partners, and that made them very close. They were like buddies. She was really, really attractive, really, really tomboyish, really butch. And he said, I thought I wanted the doormat, and it turns out I didn't. I made a great choice. And then the third case was someone who tried to be the housewife, and the guy said, you know what, this is horrible. What do you want to do? And she said, I want to go to school. I want to get a doctorate. He said, okay, let's do that. And she ended up getting her doctorate, and she was going to be, she was rising up in academia, and he couldn't have been prouder. And, she owed it all to him. And so there were these three success stories, but they had to look long and hard to find those. These women were very special, and the ones
obviously, I know a lot of horror stories as well.
So do I.
But those three stories. By the way, I thought I wanted a doormat. What kind of nincompoop wants a doormat?
Well, he was a dummy. He was an average sort of guy, and she was much brighter than he was. And she wasn't. They've been together for years now, so she wasn't going to leave him because there's a certain type of woman who likes having a slightly dumber husband. Not
all of them.
All of them, yeah.
Come on. Behind every great man, there is a woman who thinks he's an idiot.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
No, and that's another thing that's a colossal failure, is that every woke movie now is collapsing.
Don't remind me. We still have some time to go. And if I start having flashbacks on the Netflix bullshit, I saw a couple of episodes of Madam Secretary.
Yes.
I swear to God, I'm having the same symptoms as I would if I had received a lobotomy.
Yeah, no.
It killed part of my brain. Oh, God. How can people be so incredibly stupid is beyond me.
Well, I saw a movie reviewer explaining why these female-led movies are failing, and it's because the writers believe that by just making this a woman, that's the battle won. So here's the woman, and now we're going to have her do what she does. And
Yeah, so, whatever it is.
Well, in all these
holy cow,
the strong, independent women have no personality.
No, but listen, we have a Secretary of State who runs her home like an Iowa housewife in the 1950s, while battling the world and surviving bombings, and she's kissy with Iran, and making peace with the Houthis. Really?
No, none of that's real. You know, they said that Hillary was the most accomplished woman in American history. I mean, name one of her accomplishments.
Who?
I come up.
Name one. Name
No.
one woman.
I mean, okay, like
By the way, we haven't had a woman Secretary of State. We had Cruz and Harringtons.
I believe the first black female pilot in the United States was a woman named Bessie Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
Hillary doesn't have a pilot's license. Bessie Johnson learned how to fly when, you know, it was literally you're in a stick and linen.
Yeah, and she had to fight her way to be allowed into that fucking cockpit.
Oh yeah. And you know, I mean, the list goes on and on of women who are, you know, they've got one, much less millions of accomplishments to Hillary's, you know, zero. And
They be saying here that Hillary can only fly on her broom.
exactly, yeah.
She doesn't need a pilot license for that.
No. I don't know. I just the word that comes to mind is vapid. This is all very vapid.
Vapid, yes.
Is very.
I mean, is there anything more vapid than Beijing Diane?
Exactly. I mean,
Make her memory be forgotten?
she's already dead, right?
Yeah, that's why I said that, because
Yeah.
you know how people that want to speak ill of the dead. Fuck her. I hope she's roasting in hell.
Well, okay, her and Pelosi. Look at Pelosi.
Why do you do this to me? No, I'm gonna have nightmares again.
The first female Speaker of the House. Big deal. Look at her record. Look at her record. And
The record of dismal failure
yeah, we have to
and
pass
thievery.
laws in it. I mean, come on.
And thievery, because people forget that she's not only an incompetent bitch, she's a thief
Yeah, of course.
who compromised our boys in the Iraq war
Yeah, by
by
going Syria.
poking Turkey in the ass
Yep.
and forcing them to not use Interlink, but to go around the Suez Canal and arrive to the party 4 weeks late.
Yeah. No, and this was all to sabotage George Bush. And, you know, she also went and she demolished 20 years of work done by the Syrian opposition to Bashar al-Assad.
Yeah.
You know, that's her legacy. She's
And here we are with Bashar al-Assad, after killing 500,000 fucking Muslims without a single fucking protest anywhere.
no.
Where are those people waving flags and calling for the lives of the poor dear old muzzies over there? Where are they when Assad murders 500,000 Muslims?
Well, he's not Jewish.
Oh, how about China using 1 million Muslims for parts
They're not Jewish.
and destroying mosques because, according to China, Islam is a mental defect?
Yeah. No, I mean, the Chinese are not Jewish. I mean, this is all, I mean, it's so easy to see. The rabid hatred is based on one possible thing. And,
Yes,
you know,
Jew hatred.
of course, it's,
Nothing else. And that includes Carlson. I'm not going to tire today of making reference to the rancid anti-Semitism of that little fuck.
yeah, I mean, the dual loyalty thing is, you know, they used to talk about dog whispers. It's whistles. It's not even a dog whistle. It's overt, you know.
It's their Sturmer.
Yeah, it's exactly.
They cannot be good American citizens.
Exactly. And okay,
And by the way, and he uses that trope for Ben Shapiro.
yeah, that's really funny.
I mean, you know, stop there for a second. You know, because we have discussed it, that I disagree with many things Shapiro does, and I don't have the greatest admiration for
No,
his ability to destroy people with an IQ lower than 10.
no, I'm not a fan. But
I'll tell you one thing. Ben is a patriot.
of course he is.
He is a committed American.
Yeah, there's no doubt.
He is a conservative in ways that assholes like Tucker Carlson will never come close to understanding.
Well, I mean, just to question people's loyalty based on their religion, this is like, I mean, this is, you know, going back to the Salem witch trials. I mean,
Yes.
I understand. Do you want Ben to like sign it? Do you want Ben to disavow Israel or sign a loyalty oath? I mean, I saw something. It was like McCarthy didn't go far enough, and it's like, okay, McCarthy.
Yeah, McCarthy, by the way, was a fucking Democrat who ran on a Republican ticket because his own party couldn't stand him.
Well,
he launched his campaign with Robert Kennedy, the father of the anti-vax asshole who's trying to run for something.
Well, see, McCarthy. In the case of the McCarthy hearings and everything, McCarthy was right, but he was also an outrageous drunk.
Yes.
He went crazy. He made accusations that weren't correct, and he basically gave the opposition all the ammunition they needed, to the point where today McCarthyism is a synonym for unfair, hysterical accusations and persecution. And
yeah, but what they don't tell you is that the guy making most of those accusations was Robert Kennedy.
Yeah, no, I mean,
who was the vice chair of the Committee on Un-American Activities.
Of course, and you know, Robert Kennedy is, for whatever reason, he's a hero. I didn't get it.
Fucking fascist.
Well, this is the thing that all this mythology, you know, at some point reality does have to intrude, and for a lot of people, reality never intrudes, and that's where you get really dangerous situations. And you know, I don't follow a lot because I'm at that age. I've heard all this shit for decades, and I've lost interest. And now, I mean, literally, I shouldn't say that, because that's another term that's been co-opted by young idiots. You know, I was literally just sitting here, and then I was literally walking, and it's like, really? Not
no shit. I thought you were figuratively just sitting there.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, but I've gotten to the point where, I mean, I honestly feel no emotional investment in any of this, because it's all the voters' fault. The politicians they can sell whatever snake oil they want, and if the voters are so stupid that they actually buy it,
they are.
Yeah.
They do. And unfortunately, that's the way. Every now and then they surprise you.
Yeah. No,
but it has to get to a level of incompetent management that everybody hurts.
That's the thing, and it shouldn't have to do that, but here we are.
No. In Argentina, it took 10 times getting the country into hyperinflation, and with inflation running at a rate of 7,500% per year, they had it. No shit, Sherlock. And as soon as these idiots can rub 2 cents together and go to the beach for a week, they're going to start fucking again.
Oh yeah.
Because they're going to want the state to give me something. I don't believe in deathbed conversions.
No.
And I don't believe in the instant conversion from a nanny state fanatic into libertarian. It doesn't happen that way.
No. I mean, look at Chile. Chile was doing really well.
Yeah, and as soon as they started doing well, they elected a communist for president.
Yeah. And you know, the students started demanding, you know, free everything, and they started blockading and burning, and so the government, they elected a communist. He said, I'll do what you want. And then they went, and then Chile went.
And there we go again.
Yeah. So,
by the way, Sarah wasn't just yesterday in the canal. She is today. She's connected on the internet on board the ship, and she's telling us that weather conditions are good today in the canal. Look at that. We have our own correspondents in the Suez Canal today. Amazing, isn't it?
Well.
And Steve is asking, what about the instant conversion to female when you come in 127th in your league?
Yeah, no, we see that.
That happens too.
And again, that's so insane that we're seeing now sports where in the women's league, you have all male teams on both sides competing against each other. And
it's like a spoof.
Okay. I was talking about old movies. I saw some movie made in the 90s, or I saw the ad for it. And it was a girl who wanted to play on the boys' soccer team. And they're all laughing. Oh, yeah. Girls can't play on the boys' soccer team. So she invented a long-lost twin brother.
Yes.
And
I know the movie.
Yeah. And she was, I guess, going back and forth or whatever.
The best scene is when she kisses her boy, who thinks he's a boy.
Right.
Yeah, but that was fun. But that was interesting.
Well, see,
and that wasn't perverted. That was, this woman can compete with men. Okay, I believe there are many who can.
Oh, of course. I mean, there's no doubt. But okay, Andrew Tate. I don't know.
But she did. By the way, she didn't cut off her teats.
No.
And take hormones. She was just being herself.
Yeah. Andrew Tate, I don't know much about him. He's not my cup of tea. But he did say one thing. He said he was having one of his Ben Shapiro style debates with an idiot. And I guess this was a female mixed martial artist who wanted to go up against men. That's when they're in the ring and it's like they're doing everything. They're kicking, they're hitting, full contact. And he said, you've never felt the full force of a male who's trying to beat you senseless. That's never happened in your life. Mm. And she's like, I could take it. And in her first fight against a man who was very low ranked, he beat her senseless. It was shocking. And this is just the case. This is why, even though there is tons of female on male domestic abuse, when the males are the abuser, the women suffer much greater injuries.
Of course.
Including death. When the females physically abuse...
Ask O.J. Simpson's strange wife.
Exactly. When the females abuse the males, it tends to be sort of feeble choking that the man kind of bats her hands away, scratches, the occasional bloody nose, slaps. I lived with a couple where the female was a domestic abuser, And one very memorable night, she tore off all his clothes, so he was stark naked. He was just standing there, and like, it was appalling. It was pathetic. We we snuck out once, and we went to a bar, and I was telling him, "This can't go on." You know, this. I know. Then all of a sudden, she appears behind us. She's wearing her bathrobe, and she's like, ah! And she raises a pair of scissors, and then out of nowhere comes the bouncer, and he grabs her hand. And he goes, "I knew she was squirrely. The second I saw her, I knew she was squirrely." This was Portland, in the late 80s.
Oh, God, it was a madhouse.
When you called 911, the cops were there in under a minute.
Yep.
So the bouncer called 911. We left. And as we were walking out the door, this police cruiser pulls up. The door opens before it's even stopped. This cop races out and jumps inside. So they're going to haul her away, and she's screaming, "Jeff, I love you." He's going, then I can't do it. And he goes back, and he's not going to press charges. And then
I love you right back, dear.
No, and then he told me that night that there's no sex like makeup sex. I was like, okay, I got to get out of here. And
I mean, there's a limit to what anyone should do for a lay. Okay.
Well, he contacted me after 30 odd years. And all he wanted to talk about was his ex-wife who he divorced 30 years ago.
Stephen is telling us the U.S. Olympics just officially allowed a tranny into the women's division boxing.
Well, then that's that.
Who pays for the pine box?
No, the women. Okay, during the COVID madness, we sacrificed a generation of kids who missed 2 years of school. There's going to have to be a generation of women who just boycott all female sports.
Yep.
Because otherwise they're going to get hurt.
They're beginning to say it now, but you and I have been saying it for over a year. I have zero respect for women who complain they were robbed, but they didn't just walk out.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not going to win anyway, then just say, I'm not.
You might as well walk up and make a sissy fit. Of course I'm walking now. What do you think? I'm going to compete against a man?
Yeah. Well,
why do we have women's sports?
If there's a man on a female soccer team, then both teams need to not play, and that man has to be forced to play a game all by himself. He has to play. We have to have the ridiculous spectacle
of a single tranny standing in the field,
right, with a referee, and then he kicks the ball into the goal, and he has to play. I don't know how soccer goes. Is it a time?
Well, in the case of soccer, it would be as long as there is one for a team, the other team concedes. And that's it. They don't have to actually play.
Okay, so make the tranny kick his soccer ball all the way down to the enemy goal, and then he can win.
Yeah.
Just make it as ridiculous and Monty Python
as possible. Yes. Yeah, and the same thing forever. But these poor women, which I think are being robbed,
of course,
must have not just the dignity, but the ovaries to say no.
Well, that's the thing, that this has gone as far as it has because people didn't stamp it out in the beginning the way.
No, they played along.
They played along, and it's a great. If we'd taken the Tucker Carlson, well, we did take the Tucker Carlson approach, and look where we are.
Yeah,
look where we are. And
by the way, another epic failure for you. This is Gaza.
Mm-hmm.
This is Gaza when a Hamassholes tunnel is being blown up.
Whoosh.
Did you see the size of that shit?
Yeah.
Now, let's look at it one more time. Oh, look at that! It's a piece of beauty. This isn't the biggest one I've seen.
No, not by far.
But there is one that was found underneath the headquarters of Yahya Sinwar, who I have in our meme today, holding a baby with what appears to be like an AK-47.
Right.
Now, by the way, innocent civilians. See that little kid? He's not even 80 years old, and he's already a terrorist.
Yeah. No, he's wearing the Hamas. I think they're something brigades. I forgot.
Yeah, the martyr thing. They got his headquarters. They found the tunnel under it, which he probably used to escape.
Yeah.
They blew the fuck out of the tunnel, and they got him trapped like a sewer rat.
Yeah. No, the Hamas are trying to swim to Egypt, and the Egyptians are just machine gunning them.
Yeah. They're going to have to try to swim to fucking Crete, and probably the Greeks will shoot him. If they make it to Crete, they better try landing on the Turkish side.
Yeah, no, I mean this is hubris of a sort we've never seen. These guys they believed. My brother says it's when you eat your own cooking, and
Yeah.
these guys believe their own propaganda, and they sowed the wind. Now they're reaping the whirlwind, and it's a thing of beauty. And Tucker Carlson pretends that he cares about the Gazan civilians. He doesn't care about them. He just hates Jews. He hates Israel.
The Gazans don't care about the Gazan civilians.
Exactly.
The Egyptians don't give a flying fuck about the Gazan civilians.
The only people who care about the Gazan civilians are the Israelis. And
Yes.
as we explained earlier, that this is a full-fledged war, and the Israelis have decided to do nothing by half measure. And from the Geneva Conventions to the customary international humanitarian law, everything allows for civilian casualties,
Of course.
as long as they're proportional to the mission. So
or inevitable. I mean, if you're going after a military target, so be it.
Well, okay, if you're trying to kill one guy and you level a city, that's a war crime.
Yeah.
But there's 2.1 million people there, and even if we take the Palestinian casualty figures as at face value, it's a drop in the
It's
bucket.
nothing.
It's a drop in the fucking bucket.
You mean 20,000, including thousands of Hamas fighters?
Well,
in the area that was built as the highest density city in the world?
No, I mean, they're going to starve to death. No, they're not. They've got food. They're all overweight.
They're going to run out of fuel. They still have lights and internet.
Yeah. No, I mean,
I guess they weren't.
No, they're going to run out of fuel any day now. Jesus Christ, it's been over 2.5 months. Like, when are they run out of fuel already?
Yeah, it's like, please run out of fucking fuel so we can finish this.
No, it's the Israelis. The last I read is that they had over 8,000 confirmed Hamas dead.
Yes.
And, it's much more than that, because they've collapsed so many tunnels. It will never know how many terrorists were buried down there. And I just think it's hilarious that they got these guys out whose last military experience was 2004, giving us predictions about what the Israelis were going to have to do using their 2004 experience. And it's like, I'm sorry, that was 19 years ago, and technology has
It's changed a little bit since.
well, the Ukrainians have drone bombers now, and nobody ever thought of that before. So they have these giant drones called Baba Yagas, and
Yep.
they fly. They have a massive range. They fly out, and then they drop the short range attack drones. And those they've figured out how to make the Baba Yaga into a receiver and a transmitter of signals. So the people back at base can still control the attack drones by going through the Baba Yaga. And the Russians call it Black Death because, you know, they can never see them. These things are operating at night too because they have night vision on them, and the Russians have never figured out night vision.
No, they're still trying. They haven't even figured out where to buy it. Apparently, they've never been to a sports store in a mall in America.
No, I mean, I don't know. It's in at this late date to hear people praising the Russians. I mean, it's just really pathetic.
Yeah. Let me show you how the Russians target military facilities. How about that? There we go. This is in Kiev.
Yep.
And there was a missile that just struck an apartment building there.
Sure.
Now, look at where there you go, another one. No, it's the same one.
Yeah.
Look at that. Now, look at where that thing is.
Yeah.
Is it adjacent to a military facility?
No, of course not.
Is it a ministry or some, Department of Defense facility, a Pentagon type? No. That missile is dozens of miles from the closest military facility.
Well, not only that, the Russians are using their highest technology to terrorize civilians. They don't even have the fucking brains to try and use them in a military capacity. I don't get it, but it just proves that these are primitive people who can't understand the concept of winning a war by beating enemy forces, and instead they still think you can terrorize the civilian population into surrendering the country.
And by now we should know the only thing you do is piss them off.
We learned that in World War II.
Yeah.
This is why we stopped. I mean, people think we bombed civilians in Hanoi. We did no such thing. We bombed the railway hubs. We bombed military installations. We bombed
and not one of those bombs hit Hanoi Jane. Damn it.
Oh, she was long gone by then.
I know.
So yeah.
Now, can you imagine? Says Movie Time Blues. He's another one of our. Can you imagine if that happened with a building in New York?
It did.
It did.
Yeah.
People don't remember.
Yeah.
22 years ago, for crying out fucking loud.
Yeah.
And people have already forgotten.
Well, it's I don't know. I I don't know why Russia. I mean,
If Faisal says that Russians kill civilians everywhere they go, yeah, because they cannot confront an organized military enemy.
No.
Period. Have you noticed a couple of things in the intelligence report from the British Ministry of Defense today? The level of casualties for the Russians increased by 300 dead per day compared to last year's.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do people have an idea of what we're talking about? They are approaching 500,000 casualties, of which 250,000 are dead. In the 10 years in Afghanistan, the Russians lost 70,000.
Yeah.
70,000, which, by the way, in the 20 years of Afghanistan, we lost all of 4,000. There you go. 70,000. And that's to prove what I always say, that Afghanistan wasn't really a fucking war, okay? It was a hunting expedition. Now, they lost 70,000 in Afghanistan, and some people credit that loss with the fall of the Soviet Union. It was the return of the soldiers and the bodies that moved Russians to change how they viewed. I always thought that was bullshit, but if that were true, by now they should be sharpening the knives.
Well,
the other thing is 500,000 casualties. They did 3 drafts. They threw every prisoner who could walk into the meat grinder.
well, they're pardoning cannibals now.
And the end result is they're putting criminals, young people, and old farts who couldn't run fast enough from the recruiter with 1940s weaponry, and they throw them into meat grinders in Avdiivka and in other places, and they die by the scores. Ukraine's casualties are less than 1/3 those of Russia.
The Ukrainians in Avdiivka are reporting that the death rate is 20-1 in the favor of the Ukrainians.
Yeah. Now, in Avdiivka, at this rate, the Russians would need an army of 3 million just to make things even.
Yeah.
And people think that Ukraine has lost.
No, it's this is the thing that people they draw their conclusions based on no facts whatsoever. Somebody told them that Ukraine had lost, and so they're repeating it. But I saw a video today of a Russian pointing out, okay, the way a mortar round works is you have the explosive inside the mortar. You have a primer on the end, so when the mortar, you can either set it to blow up for an air burst, or you can make it a contact round and it blows up when it hits the ground. And the way a mortar is fired is that it has these rings of powder along the tail, and you drop it down the tube, and there's a like a firing pin down there, and it sets off these things. He was saying that the Russian-made mortar rounds they're getting are useless. They can't be used because they don't have the right amount of powder to send them off. That they are currently 9 kilometers from the front line, and in order to use these Russian weapons, they have to move within 6 kilometers, which puts them within a range they can't be, because they'll be, he said that.
And it's still, there is a 30% chance it's going to kill the operator.
Right.
If they're using the North Korean munitions, which have proven to be quite lethal for the Russians.
He said they're getting better ammunition from China and
Yeah.
mentioned another country, and I don't remember, Iran. But
China, by the way, has increased its exports to Russia 20-fold
sure,
since last year. They're the main supplier of weapons to Russia while pretending to be neutral.
yeah, no, and
Now, the shit that the Chinese supply is no better than the North Korean.
no,
Those little Citroën Meari that they're sending, those little transports that look like fucking golf carts.
Yeah.
I've seen so many of them charred that I have a pretty good idea what they're good for.
Well, also they're used on rough terrain, and they have a massively high center of gravity. That's just stupid. That's stupid. It's typical Chinese engineering. It makes no sense. But this poor Russian complaining about the mortars, the poor dear was asking that this information, this video be shown to whoever the governor of his district
to Putin so that he knows that. Remember, I think I told you once that in one of my trips to Cuba, I came to the sorry-ass conclusion that Fidel Castro was, at that time, the leader of both the government and the opposition.
Mm-hmm.
It is a feat that I have never seen anywhere else in the world. Half of the Cubans would, treat Castro as if he were an envoy from God.
Mm-hmm.
And the other half would demand that Castro go, their Congress was called the La Asamblea del Poder Popular, the People's Power Assembly. Nice name. And Fidel has to go to the People's Power Assembly and whip these assholes to shape so they start working for the benefit of Cuba. I never understood the mental gymnastics necessary to believe at the same time that he's the head of the government, and yet he's not responsible for the actions of the government. He has to go and tell the government what to do. Give me a fucking break. The same thing happens with Russians. Obviously, the government doesn't know that this is happening. They do, baby. They do, and they don't give a flying fuck about you.
Yeah. Oh, it's like the Russian peasants calling on God to bless the baby czar. He's our czar. He's the reason the Reds executed, murdered Nicholas II and his family was that they were terrified that some army of peasants was going to, come and save him. And Lenin is the czar's successor. It's a wax effigy of his body now is still on display in a glass coffin, and people still go to see him.
Yeah, they stand in line all day.
Yeah.
Did I ever tell you my experience in rural Argentina when I had the porcelain factory? I moved to the little fucking town because it was too far. And I was the owner with my father of this factory, which was the largest, the second largest in that county. The first one was a Nestle chocolate plant.
Mm.
And I had a shitload of employees. And I decided to move there. I used to go every other day, but at one point I realized I had to be there. So I rented myself a house nearby, and I moved there. And my first weekend there, I swear to God, I have visions of the life of Brian. You know, when Brian naked opens the window and all the people are down there. Well, fortunately, I wasn't naked. But I opened the door to go out and get my newspaper, and there was a fucking line standing in front of my door. And it was people bringing their children for me to bless them. And I first tried to reason, said, what the fuck do you want this from me? You know, you don't need it, just go. And then I realized that I was committing an act of treason. That what I was doing was cruel, because I was denying the little kiddies the blessing of the Grand Kahuna. And very much against my beliefs, I had to put my hand on the head of the little ones and tell the parents, may God bless him and keep him for you, or some shit to that effect. Que Dios te lo bendiga. And I couldn't, and every fucking week, I had another fucking line of ignoramuses standing there to be, actually not to be blessed themselves, but to bless their children. A friend of mine told me it's a good thing you did it, because if you don't, they're going to destroy your house and burn it.
Yeah, exactly. No, did you ever see the treasure of the Sierra Madre, where the three gold diggers have braved every possible calamity, and they've got their gold, and they're coming back to Mexico City, and a bunch of peasants ask them, you know, they say, something's happened to one of our kids, you know, he fell in the river, and we pulled him out, and he's neither dead nor alive. And so the oldest prospector goes, and he performs artificial respiration and pumps the water out, and the kid revives, and then he leaves, and they're all, you know, blessing him. And then they come riding up, and they say, you know, you have to come and accept our gratitude. You know, you have to be our guest, because if you don't, then all the saints in heaven will fall down. And he tells the other two, you know, they're going to take me by force if I don't go, and they'll
Right.
you know, so I'm stuck. And so he goes there, and they're like, he's their guest, but he's also their prisoner, you know, where he has to stay there until they feel their debt to him has been paid off.
Well, that happened with Alvar Nunes after he escaped the voracious natives of Florida, who ate half the expedition and were already relishing the possibility of trying his gluteus maximus. He managed to escape all the way to somewhere in New Mexico or Arizona, where he saved a wounded Indian. And he became a famous witch doctor, and tribes used to pass him along one to the other, until somebody in Mexico got word of the witch doctor that was curing everybody. And that's how they managed to send an expedition to rescue him. But they wouldn't let him go.
No.
He was the spirit's gift to the tribe to cure us all, you know. So beware of the bless my child shit, because it makes you a slave.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's...
Once I held it.
On the other hand, that's the serf mentality. That is the serf mentality. You know, these people would have done anything that I asked.
years ago, I went to a hospital and I held the door open for an old person. And then another one came through, and then another one came through. And it was like 50 old people. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I was like, you know. So now that I'm old myself, when young people, you'd be surprised how many people open a door for me. And I always say, oh, thank you, you know, and you know, make sure that you know, I'm very gracious, and I don't say I can do it myself. My father, when
no, you have to be a feminazi for that.
No, when my father, I mean, he made it to 85, and you know, if somebody held the door open for him, he'd just stand there staring. Why are you doing that? I'm perfectly capable of opening my own door. Thank you. When he was asked if he wanted the senior menu at a restaurant, you know, it got to the point where we'd tell the waiter, we'd find, you know, who's going to wait on our table, and we'd say, do not offer him the senior menu.
No. I'm ahead of your dad. I always ask for the old fart menu.
Yeah.
The waitresses laugh, but hey, frankly, I'm eating the same shit, but 30% less. Why not? Why not? Do you have an old fart menu? And they crack up.
Yeah.
Because of my white beard, I've been getting the old fart menu since I was 50.
Yeah. No, I mean, my beard's been white since, I was about 50. Maybe late.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, late 40s.
There are advantages to the snowy face.
Well, people tell me I should shave it off so I could look younger, and I always say, why would I want to look younger? You know?
I mean, really, I cannot think of a good reason, by the way.
No.
I cannot think of a good reason. Should I forgot what I've learned too? So I sound younger as well.
Well, I mean, I don't feel any different than I did. I mean, there's more aches and pains, but I'm the same person. I've definitely evolved and changed and all that, but I haven't become elderly the way, like you see these pictures of American GIs in World War II, and they're all like, "Hey, Chutch, how are you?" And then now, when they're being interviewed, you know, the few of them that are still left, they're projecting like their grandfathers. It's like they're acting part, you know.
No, I mean, come on. If I, when I was a kid, and you can still see it. I mean, you see it in Miami with the old farts playing dominoes in the city square, or they're 65. They're not old people. They dress like old people. They behave like old people. And, you know, this is the time when I get to play dominoes in the square. Go fuck yourselves.
Exactly.
I mean, there are things I won't do. There are things I'm too old for this shit. I'm not gonna walk from Benjamin Constant to Iquitos. Fuck that. Been there, done that. They can have the mosquitoes, the fucking Amazon, and the guerrillas, and shove them up their collective ass. By the way, the guerrillas that I met there are now, one is the president of Colombia. Things change. And that is, speaking of that, his neighbor, Maduro, más que Maduro está pasado. Maduro, for those who don't know what I just said, is ripe. Fruta madura is a ripe fruit. Pasado is rotten. Si está pasada, it's rotten. So Maduro, ripe, is rotten more than ripe. He now decided to pick a fight with England and the U.S.
And Brazil, the Brazilians are already mobilizing. They've already put troops on the border, and you know,
because the Brazilians know that if they don't do something to stop this asshole, they're gonna start speaking English in Venezuela pretty soon.
Yep.
And now the UK is put naval, some ships in the territorial waters of Essequibo, to ostensibly do an exercise, but really to protect the oil projects going on there. And I swear to God, Maduro, the fucking imbecile, dressed in camo.
Yeah.
Like a bad movie about a sniper.
Yeah.
Dressed in camo, but not just, the shirt. No. Fucking camo.
Yeah.
In a table. Surrounded by camouflage.
Yeah.
With ministers of state. Old, fat Venezuelans dressed like they're camouflaged to go to the jungle.
Yeah. No, I mean,
this is worse than a parody.
well, it's like Saddam Hussein wearing his military beret and all his ministers wearing their berets and their khaki uniforms and carrying their sidearms and
Yeah.
it's just typical. It's your
No, but I'm not talking about the khaki uniform. I'm not talking about Fidel and his olive uniform. No, I'm talking about plants.
Yeah, a ghillie suit is called.
A ghillie suit in Caracas.
Yeah.
This is like underscoring the target.
Yeah.
Who do we have to kill? Well, that fucking moron with a ghillie suit.
Exactly.
They spot you from 3 miles away in Caracas.
I mean,
They're that stupid.
The Venezuelans have like I mean, they're even less militarily capable than the Russians.
Oh God! Yeah, no. I mean, 200,000 Venezuelans would get their ass kicked by 10 Russians.
Yeah, and the Brazilians.
Their equipment is all Russian or Iranian, so we know how well that works.
No, I mean Brazil, despite its problems, it's got very capable armed forces. And
yeah, small.
Yep.
Small, but fairly capable.
Yeah, they can handle
for South American standards. It's like,
no, and if
there would be no contest to the Brits, there would be no contest to the Ukrainians.
Yeah.
But if they have to deal with the Venezuelans, it's a walk in the park.
Yeah. No, I mean, if the Brits get involved, then, say goodbye. I mean, the Venezuelans.
Yeah, the Brits already put the ships in there. This is over before it even started.
Yeah.
So who the fuck is going to pick a fight with now? Because he needs a fight. He desperately needs something. He kind of took out of the magician's hat a border dispute that was settled 130 years ago. In desperation, he needs something to distract Venezuelans from the overall miserable life.
Yeah.
He can't now.
No. I saw a video. We lived in an oil camp, and there was a city down the street where there were clinics and all of that. And I saw a video, and it showed houses there, and it showed the residents in their houses, and they were standing waist deep in crude oil, black crude oil. There'd been some pipe leak, and nobody had done anything about it. So, they were trying to salvage what they could, and it was like they were in the La Brea tar pits. It was just, and it was like, I used to go there, not anymore.
God. And by the way, he has 5,000 troops. They painted their face all green.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not the way it's done with black, green, and trying to
disruptive camouflage, just green.
No, No, they all look like fucking Kermit.
Yeah.
It's a joke.
Yeah. No, they're idiots. He's an idiot.
I guess we're entering the very last leg of these idiots.
Yeah.
And they have lost a big support in Argentina.
Mm-hmm.
And Brazil apparently has decided that they want nothing to do with the idiot. And they're being outstaged by a fucking terrorist as president of Colombia.
Mm-hmm.
I think Venezuela is toast sooner rather than later.
Mm-hmm.
Other assholes are going to last a little bit longer.
Mm-hmm.
Like Bolivia and that thing. And definitely that communist bastard in Brazil. But, you know what?
I don't.
The thing in Argentina, and I still don't give a flying crap about Argentina one way or another, but it is an interesting subject of study right now because I've never seen what is going on there. I've never seen a socialist state dismantled through elections.
No.
I've never seen it. Now, these guys won convincingly, 60-40,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't control the parliament. And one of the 300 and some changes proposed in the new law includes changes in the election laws that would essentially make it impossible for any of these assholes ever to step on parliament again. So I doubt very much they're going to go for it.
Mm-hmm.
But if they manage this, I think they're going to put the kiss of death on leftism in South America.
Yeah.
No, it's a big if. It's a big if. I'm very cautious with that because the forces these people are battling are very entrenched and they have control of just about everything in that country. So,
yeah, but without backers, without Russia, without China, more and more countries are pulling out of the whole Belt and Road nonsense, and
Well, Argentina just did.
Yep.
It told not only the Belt and Road Initiative, they told China to go fish. Yesterday, he sent a letter to Lula, who is the president of the BRICS right now, that loose association of losers. And essentially he said, I know that my predecessor in September announced that we were joining BRICS on January 1st. This letter is to tell you that it's not going to fucking happen. So good luck in your endeavors. Call me if you want to buy or sell something here. I'll see who I introduce you to and fuck off. I actually put the letter in the forum. I'm, of course, doing a literary translation, not a literal one.
Mm-hmm.
But it is one of the biggest fuck yous I've seen, done with certain elegance.
Mm-hmm.
He appointed his ambassadors. Cuba doesn't get one, Venezuela doesn't get one, Nicaragua doesn't get one. When they asked him why, he says, because we don't deal with fucking communists. I'm not making it up. That's the language he actually did use, and this time it is literal.
Mm-hmm.
Belt and Road Initiative and all the just now. We don't deal with communists. Zelensky was in Argentina for his inauguration and walked out of Argentina with 2 helicopters. And I had just told you, Zelensky went down there for the political support because he ain't gonna get shit. He got shit. I can't believe it. Apparently, Argentina had 2 Russian helicopters.
Yep.
That some imbecile bought because it was probably a big commission.
Mhm.
And I can say, what the fuck do we need this shit for? Zelensky, yeah. Do you have this type of shit? Yes. You want him? Sure. Take him. And suddenly Argentina became another supplier of arms to Ukraine. this is too much.
Mhm.
That would be an epic failure
Mhm.
for Russia, Iran, and China.
Definitely.
And if it spreads, which, if he's still there 6 months from now, it will spread. You know, freedom has this contagion power. Why can they do this and we can't? Hamassholes are on their way to oblivion.
Mhm.
I am now finally convinced that Israel doesn't give a flying fuck how many Democrats want them to stop. And they are going to
They have no leverage. The Democrats have no leverage.
zero leverage. The only thing slightly more ridiculous than Maduro in this world is Biden.
Mhm.
You and I stipulated 2 years ago that neither Russia nor Ukraine could win the war. I'm beginning to believe now that Ukraine can.
Mhm.
Europe is not going to falter. After listening to people in government in the Czech Republic, in Finland, in Italy, they're not going to falter. They're going to support Ukraine come what may. And if there is need to put troops in there, as a last resort, they will. They will do whatever they can to stop Russia from profiting from its invasion. And we're going to have to go along with that. I also think that Saudi will join the Abraham Accords when this shit is over.
Yeah.
Have you noticed? Not only that nobody wants the Palestinians, because who the fuck wants these assholes? Where's the outrage in the streets of Saudi Arabia?
Or anywhere, really.
Or Cairo?
Yeah.
Or Morocco?
No,
20 years ago, we would have seen a Middle East and rather an Islam crescent ring of fire. Where are the protests now? Nobody gives a shit.
No. Because
The governments of these countries support Israel more or less openly. They still pay a little bit of lip service pour la galerie, but they hint that, okay, now with the most epic failure of 23 was Hamas filming themselves. It made it impossible for their potential allies to support them, with the exception of Tucker Carlson and a couple of Democrats. Would that our enemies be that stupid every single time they act? Did we leave some stupidity aside today? Well, China, by the way, folks, hello? China is broke.
What? What?
China is broke. It's not going broke. it is broke.
Yeah.
They're going to be toast. The moment the moment Biden walks out of the White House, unless they can buy another president, they're fucked.
Mhm.
But hey, so
I think that about covers it.
did I leave anybody out?
I don't think so.
No. Okay. Well, so these are the beautiful failures that we see around us, and may there be contagion, so that the Democrats experience this coming year an epic failure of their own. They certainly are making everything they can to ensure it, from the assholes in the Supreme Court in Colorado to the stupid cow in Maine. I think they're jumping the gun much like Hamas did on October 7. They could have been more effective if they waited until the primary and then proscribed Trump. Now, nothing they're doing is going to stop Trump from becoming the candidate. On the contrary. And by the time we move into the general elections, all of this will be cleared by the Supreme Court. And it will be evident that these people try to hold on to power by proscribing their political opponents. Maybe some Americans will get the hint, don't you think?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Anyway, for those of you who are patient and gracious enough to have put up with us until now, thank you so very much. For those who participated in the chat, I hope I referred to enough of your input, and I am exceedingly glad to see many friends there. For those of you watching us in Twitter, I hope you guys eventually join us here, and if not, hey, so be it. For those of you watching us in YouTube, you got a bonus today, because in spite of my aversion to you boob, hey, right now it's 2 a.m. in the East Coast, and we're already on the very last day of 2023. Consider these our New Year's gift to you. And if you feel generous enough to make a contribution, please don't do it in fucking YouTube, because they keep half of it. So you're actually giving your money to YouTube, and very little of it trickles down to us. So go to quadverum.com/support us, or come to Odyssey on the link provided, and you'll be able to do it here. To all of you who have supported us this year, thank you so very much. And may we all have a wonderful, prosperous 24. And it being an election year, may we see the back of the wandering moron in chief for the last time as he goes into the home for the terminally stupid. And having said all of that, oh yeah, by the way, we don't have a quad meet tomorrow. We're going to have it Monday night, 10:30 p.m. And we are going to have the VIP on Tuesday, and then we'll resume normal programming. And having said all of that, without running out of air, miraculously, Thomas, do you have a last word for the year?
Happy New Year.
Thank you so much. And to you, sir, and to everybody else out there. Happy New Year, old, and good night.